Hello and welcome, members of the Wonderverse. I'm Hannah, and you're listening to episode 2 of Into the Wonderverse, your number one source for all things Scarlet Witch and Friends. If you're new here, I'm Hannah. I'm a collector of all things Wanda Maximoff, comic, MCU, animated, and otherwise. I've been posting on TikTok and Instagram for a year and a half now about Scarlet Witch news, history, and merch. But the Clock app doesn't always allow me to have the longest discussions, and I want to talk way too much about Wanda to be confined to short-form content. So here I am, live and in stereo, to deep dive into all things related to the Queen of Chaos. The main topic of this week's episode is Wanda's 1965 debut as an Avenger. We'll discuss her dynamic with her early Avengers teammates as a part of Cap's Kooky Quartet. But before we dive into all that, let's do our Wanda Maximoff Song of the Week. Once I have a couple of these, I plan to add them to an ongoing playlist so that we can listen our way through the Wanda eras together. Feel free to send in song suggestions for this segment in the comments on both TikTok and Instagram. If I pick your song, I'll shout you out. This week, however, I'm choosing Who Is She by Monster Eye. If you've been on Wanda Edit TikTok for any length of time, you've definitely heard this song. I just cannot get it out of rotation on my Apple Music. Nothing says mysterious, powerful witch like this song. And there's no way I could choose anything else with the news bouncing around this week. In news, this week, insiders are claiming that next year we'll be getting a House of M Wanda Funko with a little speech bubble saying no more mutants. This is the latest in a list of Wanda Funko rumours that are still yet to see the light of day, which so far include 8-Bit Wanda, Merlin Wanda, and now this. Though the rumour about an I Am Groot Funko Wanda did come from the same source, so they can be considered reliable since that one is showing up this July. I think this Funko would make sense since people have been asking for it for the longest time, and it's an iconic moment in the history of a massively popular character. I also think it would be a step in the right direction for Marvel, considering their historic reluctance to create products surrounding characters' current comic appearance. I would hope that if products like this continue to do well, then we might see an influx of figures and products based around more recent comic events. I would personally love if when characters got a comic redesign, we saw a push to promote these costumes, and maybe even get playline figures that feature Marvel women onto the shelves. I've voiced before my concerns that Marvel will continue to struggle to get younger people to engage with new characters if they don't make content that is aimed at kids featuring these characters. While X-Men 97 is an absolute masterpiece, I do feel that Marvel is lacking in animated shows for children that will later become the audience for the MCU, especially shows aimed primarily at girls. I think it's beyond a shame that when you walk down the aisles in toy stores, there is still the same number of superhero products there were when I was growing up for girls. E.g., none. I'll pitch my idea for a Marvel show for young girls in a future episode, but for now, let's just leave on the note, Wanda, the Teenage Witch, and leave you hanging for now. In very exciting news, the first issue of the new Scarlet Witch comic series dropped today, continuing straight from where we left her off in Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. We start off with Wanda having tea with the imprisoned Chthon and checking in on him after Agatha Harkness literally ripped his heart out. He asked if Wanda has come to gloat, and she said no, this is just a welfare check. What's also lovely in this comic is that we get to see a little bit more of domestic Wanda before we get into the action, including Wanda getting called up and then denied for jury duty, which same girly. She got denied for jury duty because of her history of demonic possession, and I got denied due to my chronic illness, which is basically the same thing in my opinion. Wanda also states that she officially sees Darcy as a friend, which means that going forward we might actually see Darcy as more closely associated with the Scarlet Witch than we do with her and the Thor gang. I'd be interested to see if she makes an appearance in Agatha All Along this year due to her now close ties with the WandaVision family. I'm going to leave off doing a full recap of the comic this week, and instead, once we've got 5 issues, I'll do a full recap of the arc so far. Though I don't know if I'll be able to hold myself back once the lore issue drops, so there's a good chance that promise isn't going to go through. Now, let's get into it. We're once again headed back into the swinging 60s to talk about Wanda and Pietro's early time as Avengers. I've got such affection for this period, because I really do feel like this was Wanda's crazy kid era. It's the only time in her comic history she's really felt young to me, probably because it's before she had any kind of serious love interest or adult responsibilities. Last week we left off with Wanda and Pietro leaving behind their life of villainy to attempt to join the Avengers. At this point in the comics, Thor was MIA as he had returned to Asgard, the Wasp wanted a break from constant danger, and the Hulk was still missing. Due to the lack of members of the Avengers, Iron Man and Giant Man, aka Hank Pym, aka Ant-Man, consider disbanding the team. As luck would have it, while they're starting to have this conversation, an intruder breaks in and ties up poor old Jarvis. Surprise! It's Hawkeye, and he wants to join the Avengers. He explains that he and the Black Widow were tricked into working for Soviet spies, but now he wants to make up for all that by becoming an Avenger. To prove he's got what it takes, he frees the very shaky Jarvis from his bonds with a trick shot. Following this new idea of having a rotating roster of heroes, rather than just having a singular team, the Avengers have a press conference asking for new members. They try to get Namor on board, but he says, no thank you. Then, of course, as we said in the last episode, Wanda and Pietro hear of this and immediately apply. While it has become quite commonplace in modern times for teams to shift and change, the move by Marvel of changing out most of the Avengers lineup in one fell swoop was almost unheard of in the 60s, as was the decision to create this lineup almost entirely of former B villains. The new lineup, nicknamed Cap's Kooky Quartet, was comprised of Captain America as the team's veteran leader, Hawkeye, who disliked being under anyone else's control, and then Wanda and Pietro. The team is probably best remembered for bickering and fighting, with all three men on the roster wanting to be the team's leader, and Wanda just begging them to please get along for their entire 11-issue run. The team were portrayed as brass young and overconfident, with Thor even claiming that he couldn't work with this new band of teammates when he visited for help in Stranger Tales. While this characterization of brash and arrogant is accurate to 3/4 of the team, it is contrary to everything about Wanda's characterization during this period. She is the pinnacle of a voice of reason within the team, always attempting to calm Pietro's ambition and to keep the team together. She shows a clear love of fighting for good and for the people of New York City, and constantly advocates for the minimalization of civilian casualties. The very first issue with the new team, issue 17, begins with them having a meeting which establishes the conflict between the three men over who should be the leader, while Wanda just finally seems happy with her situation. She defends Cap from the other men when they question his leadership, and as Cap ponders how he will keep the team together, she declares, I shall enjoy being an Avenger. The team's first adventure involves attempting to find the Hulk, who Iron Man suggested the team might need for his brute strength, and being lured into a trap involving the Minotaur. While the Avengers struggle to work cohesively, we see Wanda begin to more confidently use her powers, and in both instances of her using her hexes, we see the battle won for the Avengers. So effective are her hexes that the comics often have to find ways to take her out of commission, so that the rest of the team can use their, let's be realistic, less remarkable abilities. For example, in the following issue, when the Avengers travel to try to free the communist state of Sing Kong from a dictatorship, she is kidnapped and it is revealed that she cannot use her powers if she is blindfolded, rendering her unable to escape. It is also noted that using her hex powers drains her energy, and so she is unable to use them repeatedly in a short length of time, or perform more than one great feat. Though in the comic itself, it makes an allusion to the fact that she is considered by many the weakest Avenger, there is little evidence to support this statement beyond misogyny, since among this team, Wanda's powers are the most useful other than just brute strength. This period of comics sees many of the Avengers' enemies unwilling to battle Wanda due to the fact that she is a girl, or sometimes enemies even regret being evil simply because they don't want to harm someone as beautiful as Wanda. I don't mean this figuratively, I mean it literally. In issue 20, when the swordsman has been forced to help the Mandarin plant a bomb in the Avengers' headquarters, he declares that he wishes, I wish I could save the Scarlet Witch. She's too beautiful to be harmed. While this attitude wasn't uncommon in stories of this era, I think it's pretty funny to read as a modern audience, though I get it. I too would give up being evil for one chance with Miss Maximoff. Wanda shows off some physical fighting ability, having been trained around Captain America. We do get to have a little bit of a tour around the Avengers headquarters at one point, which other than the swanky lounge and bedrooms we see the Avengers chilling in, also features a training room and control center. These fighting skills come in clutch when her, Clint, and Pietro are forced to fight off a band of evil circus performers in issue 22. She is able to fight off the Python despite her covering her eyes because of her new training. Literally, she flips that girl over her head like a sack of potatoes, so I really don't want to hear that Wanda doesn't have any hand-to-hand combat skills. She took that snake and threw her on the ground. She also begins to show her aptitude for battle planning and strategy, choosing to lay low and charge her hex abilities until the right moment. She is able to outsmart Dr. Doom in issue 25 after he mocks her abilities, destroying the device that he was in fact using to stop her hexes. It could be argued that Wanda's continued subversion of this expected weakness is one of her more defining qualities as a heroine in these issues. During this run, it is established that in order to use her hexes, Wanda must point at what she wishes to hex. "One simple gesture shall release my hex power," she declares in issue 19, when the swordsman breaks into the Avengers' headquarters. And she must, as I've already mentioned, be able to see what she's hexing. Sometimes there is still no exact rhyme or reason as to what will happen when she casts a hex, and it is still just some vague act of misfortune that befalls whoever the hex is cast upon. However, sometimes Wanda is able to create a more targeted hex. In issue 19, we see her able to deliberately take the swordsman's sword out of his hand, and in issue 20, she is able to remove the rivets from some scaffolding in order to save Captain America. This inconsistency in how her powers work is most simply because in older comics, heroes' powers were used more situationally. Their power limits are simply whatever the comic demands that they need. The longer Wanda goes on as an Avenger, the more proactive with using her powers she becomes, eager to help fight for justice. She also shows more clear control over her abilities as the issues progress, able to use smaller and larger hexes, as well as being able to target them better towards what she is attempting to damage. During issue 23, though it drains a significant amount of her abilities, she is able to break out of a cage that she has been trapped within by Kang, using her hexes to free the other Avengers. Captain America also refers to the idea of her having hex bolts, though these are still more targeted pieces of misfortune rather than the offensive power that they would develop into. In issue 27, she manages to turn off the TV that Pietro is watching without destroying or short-circuiting it, showing how much her control over her powers has improved since she was afraid to even point in case something awful happened. Wanda and Pietro depart the Avengers for the first time in issue 30, after Wanda reveals that her hex powers have gradually been growing weaker. This revelation does somewhat come out of nowhere, as in previous issues, Wanda seemed to actually be getting a grip on her powers. Their sudden departure may have had something to do with the return of Hank and Janet to the team. While Hank and Jan are a married couple and Wanda and Pietro are siblings, their dynamics serve somewhat of a similar purpose narratively, with both sets of characters often being distracted in a fight if the other was in danger. During this time period, it was also uncommon in comics to have a lineup larger than 5, and unheard of to have a lineup that included more than one woman. There is no clear explanation for Wanda's sudden loss of powers that she appeared to be gaining more control over. Issue 31 checks back in with the twins and finds them back in their native lands in a Balkland village, where they hope that simply being close to their place of birth will help them regain their mutant powers. They continue to appear on the covers of Avengers issues despite not being present, and return for cameos in both Thor 1966 issue 134 and X-Men 1963 issue 27. Their appearance in Thor marks their first mention of Wundagore Mountain, which would later become so important to their story. In this issue of Thor, the twins explain that the legend goes that the mountain glowed on the night they were born, and ponder whether or not this had something to do with their mutant power. Wanda's most important storylines during her initial time as an Avenger, beyond dealing with the infighting among her co-workers, are centered around her desire to find more about her heritage, and her desire to live a normal life untroubled by her status as a mutant. Unlike the X-Men, the other primary mutant characters within the Marvel Universe at this time, Wanda is usually uninterested in embracing her differences from regular humans. Her and Pietro are, however, hungry to find out more about their family. In issue 27, the twins reveal that they believed themselves to be orphans, and are overjoyed when they believe they have been contacted by an aunt in Latveria, though it turns out this is actually a trick by Dr. Doom. Their original term as Avengers also still did not offer a last name for the twins, nor directly refer to them being Romani. At this point, they were almost entirely mysterious outside of being Eastern European and being twins. During this period, Marvel also attempted to give Wanda and Pietro aspirations outside of being Avengers, which brings me to one of my favourite plotlines of all time, Pietro being completely obsessed with the circus. Yes, you heard me right. In the 60s, Pietro was desperate to join the circus. We see the Avengers casually hanging out at the beginning of issue 18, and Wanda grows frustrated with Pietro ignoring her for the circus, always the circus, because she wants to go and see the 12th Night. Later, in issue 27, he tries to blow off finding out about their family because he's watching the circus on TV. God, the world has changed that just broadcasting the circus was a form of entertainment. To be honest though, with Pietro's later antics, the circus actually would have been the right place for him, and I'm surprised that Wanda never suggested that he abandoned his dream of being an acrobat because he was already good enough at being a clown. All of this is said with peace and love though, guys. Pietro is an asshole, but he's my asshole. Wanda's aspirations, meanwhile, are to become an actress. In issue 27, she explains that it's always been her dream to be on the stage. We also see her attend a performance of Dolly in issue 21, and she declares how wonderful it was and how beautiful the actress was. In issue 22, when the Avengers are forced to temporarily disband due to the interference of the Enchantress, the Avengers would actually seek out alternative jobs, and we see Pietro attempt to join the circus and Wanda audition for a play. Wanda is told that pretty faces are a dime a dozen, so why would he hire a girl with hex powers? To which she responds, "But I can sing!" and is met with the most iconic insult, "So can a canary, goodbye." With Pietro having been similarly shot down because nobody would feel safe, it's easy to see where the twins' resentment of their abilities comes from. These ill-fated aspirations give us a glance into the reason the twins are less comfortable with their mutant status. The twins dream of being normal, and they have normal dreams that they are prevented from reaching due to their powers. In terms of her relationships during this period, Wanda develops a girlish crush on Captain America, as demonstrated when she gets all weak at the knees when he touches her in issue 20, as well as her internal musings throughout further issues. Miss Mam is down bad, and she constantly backs Steve's up when the others are fighting, or even just when he's being dramatic as hell. Unfortunately, Steve doesn't seem to think of Wanda as anything but another annoying kid within the team, constantly lumping her in with the fighting of the other two men, despite the fact that she's always sticking up for him. Sis, move on! Hawkeye was also romantically interested in her during this period, though she showed no signs of returning these feelings, and with the introduction of the Black Widow, Clint's interest is diverted elsewhere. The swordsman actually betrays his cause with the Mandarin because he cannot bear to harm her. It seems that Marvel was testing out Wanda as a love interest with almost everyone she came into contact with. Any interaction with a man could spell chemistry, though her most important relationship continued to be her close and codependent relationship with Pietro. Wanda cannot think straight if Pietro is in danger, and her priority is always his safety. This is probably the reason why none of her love interests were fleshed out or developed during this era, because honestly, the levels of obsession that her and her brother had with one another was fit in the bill. We do very briefly get to see Wanda have her first female friend in Jan, and she shows a lot of concern when it's revealed that Jan is in danger. It's clear she's keen to meet the other Avengers on the team, even if she doesn't get to spend that much time with them. Her status as the only female Avenger in the quartet is highlighted and somewhat of a hindrance to her in some situations. She is referred often by the villains of the week as woman or girl. As we spoke about earlier, villains are unwilling to obliterate her in the same way they are her male counterparts. That is not feminism. Wanda rejects this special treatment repeatedly, though, stating that she will die as an Avenger, same as anyone else. As the only woman on the team, Wanda is also sometimes given skills that don't seem to be in her usual range of expertise. In issue 28, she randomly reveals that she sewed Hank a new suit while he was away. This is a complete throwaway line and unfortunately does not lead to Wanda having her own Project Runway moment. Women are just the ones who sew outfits, and since Wanda is in this issue and Jan isn't, it falls on her to be the one making the suits for the men. Wanda's civilian clothes are very feminine during this period. She wears exaggerated Hollywood-style dresses, possibly to mimic her aspirations of becoming an actress. One of my favourite non-costumes outfits is the Hollywood movie star coat that she wears to attend the theatre in issue 21. Her hair is also very distinctly black during this era, with her actual superhero costume mostly unchanged from her time in the Brotherhood. Though notably, it is sometimes depicted as a bralette and pants rather than a one-piece. We're sticking with the wimple though, so you'll have to keep holding on for the introduction of her tiara. In 1965, Wanda appeared on her very first piece of merchandise outside of the comics, a t-shirt which featured the New Avengers lineup that could be purchased by mailing away a coupon cut from inside the comic. Priced at $1.50, which is about $15 in today's money, the money order read, "I'm sick of being a badly dressed slob. Make me a well-dressed slob. Here's my $1.50, and I check the box with my correct size. Rush me my Avengers t-shirt so I can drive the neighbors wild." I don't know about you, but I'm convinced. Marvel, send me one of these pronto. I need to look my best. I want to be the best dressed Toxic Wanda-san on the block. I've got to say, I think Marvel should take a look at some of their old comic ads for merch and start advertising this way again because they're beyond funny. Wanda also made an appearance on the Marvel Comics Group official swingin' stationery kit that was advertised in the Doctor Strange comics, also for $1.50. Inside the kit was notepad paper and envelopes inside a folder that contained drawings of most of Marvel's superheroes at the time, including Wanda. And even more excitingly, on the back, all the heroes have signed the envelope. It's so fun because it gives us Wanda's signature. I would love to be able to get my hands on this piece of merch, because honestly it still holds up as something so fun and cute today. Genuinely, I wish Marvel was still producing fun comic merch like this. I don't know about you guys, maybe I'm just old, but I'd still send away to get my folder signed by the Scarlet Witch. On the next episode of Into the Wandaverse, I'll be back with more news. We'll talk about the twins' quest to regain their powers and their return to the Avengers. We'll also talk about Wanda's very first television appearance on the Marvel superheroes. If you can't wait to continue your journey into the Wandaverse, then you can find videos from me almost every day over on TikTok at Into the Wandaverse or over on Instagram at The Wandaverse. Thank you so much to my producer and editor, Nicholas Chandler, who will very soon be posting videos on his very own TikTok, The Film Nick, link in the description. Music by Melody Reyes Griffiths. Podcast art by ghoulaxyart. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to rate me over on Spotify. I'll see you all very soon. Until then, stay magical. To be honest though, with the potato,